And we're live. Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to the Mojo Show, your real estate podcast where we talk everything real estate. I'm your host, Joe Mortgage.
And I'm Cup of Joe Mortgage.
In this week's episode, we are going to continue on in our four-part series on preparing your home for the spring housing market. 2 weeks ago, we had on Mickey from CTX Pools. And then last week we talked about remodeling. You and I, Joe, talked about remodeling the home as far as just simple, cost-effective ways to get your home ready to put on the market, whether it's a simple coat of paint or what have you. But this week is going to be great. We're actually having back on a guest from before to talk about HVAC for the spring. But before we get to that, Joe, are these hailstorms really like this in Texas? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, this year we've had more hail at my house than I think I could say previous years. More frequently, but it's not been as big. I mean, we had baseball size hail back in 17 at our house, 17 or 18, I can't remember exactly, and we had to have windows replaced and roof replaced at that time.
Wow,
but we are seeing a lot more of it, and I'm just like sitting there. I'm baffled because I go outside and they're coming down, and quarter-sized pieces of hail are coming down, and I freak out because I'm not that type of person that keeps an organized garage. So I have to throw everything in the corner to get the wife's car in the garage, and I'm like, okay, well, at least I got her car in the garage. And my son's like, well, what about my truck? I was like, go park under a tree. But it has been a little bit more frequent, and I think Monday we got hit again at our house, and it actually cracked some of my pergola's plastic roofing.
Okay.
And so now I've got water coming through holes. I got to get up there and try to fix that, replace those. But I mean, that's minimal. It's I've had a lot of people in Frisco area up here.
Yeah,
they're getting roofs replaced, and then they got hit again. Cars are getting totaled out. Insurance companies right now on cars, you go in there with a bunch of hail damage, and they're like, well, your car's worth about $7,000-8,000. We're going to total it out. We'll, give you a check. It's simpler for them to do it. I'm wondering what that's going to do to our insurance premiums, because if they're doing all this. But that is a concern for me right now. But it's been nuts. And how's it been down in your area, down in the Houston area?
Well, we had a storm this morning about 3:30 in the morning. Woke me up, and usually I love sleeping through a good thunderstorm, actually. But this one just woke me up. It wasn't a hailstorm, but man, it was coming down hard and heavy, and lightning, thunder all around. I mean, it went on. It wasn't like it. It was almost like the storm just kind of came and sat on top and didn't move, and then tired, then it moved on about an hour later.
Yeah. My daughter, she'll watch the lightning storms out her window on the upstairs, and she'll just sit there with their lights off and just watch.
Yeah.
It's amazing. If you've never experienced a Texas thunderstorm, there's really cool things about them, but then there's a lot of scary things about them too. But luckily we haven't had rotation. We haven't had any tornado threats and things like that on these so far, which has been good. But it's still early in the season, so we need the rain though. I will take the rains. It's finally getting the lake back up to where we need them.
There you go. Well, want to get started with the show and this great topic about HVAC, getting HVAC ready for the spring, especially for getting ready for the spring housing market, and putting your home on. Very good to be able to have it, the maintenance up to date on it, so we don't have to worry about it in inspection or anything. We have back on a special guest today. I'm super excited about this because this is the first time we've actually had a guest come back on that actually agreed to come back, Joe, after we put him through the ringer. Kenny, he's with Spectrum Heating and Air. Has been there since partner since 2014, I understand. I believe, Kenny, you've got like 25 years experience in the HVAC maintenance and service, both residential and commercial. Welcome back to the show, Kenny.
Thanks for having me, guys. Glad to be here.
Well, We're very happy to have you. And, if you're viewing or if you're listening, please drop comments and questions in the comments section. So that way, you can ask Kenny those questions. It'll help us keep this show going too, because I'm not the one that prepares everything. Joe Reams is. So I appreciate Joe for doing all the preparation. But, now that we have a specialist on, this is where you guys can ask certain questions about your systems, and we can give you some answers to them too. So make sure you drop that in the comment section for us. And Joe, you forgot to do the applause for Kenny.
I did. Isn't that terrible? Here, let me get that in there for you.
Let's get the applause. There you go.
There we go.
Very nice. Very nice.
My show engineer side bailed out there for a second, so apologize.
Well, Kenny, not everybody probably saw the show you were on last time. So tell our viewers a little bit about, you and your company, so that way they know a little bit before we get into the topics today.
Sure. HVAC business. This company was started in 2011. Several of us partners got together, and I joined the partnership in 2014, specializing in commercial and residential service, maintenance, and replacements, basically. We don't do a lot of new construction stuff. We primarily focus on the service side of the business, service and maintenance. Service and maintenance, of course, generates the replacements over time when people need the replacements done, and we do that too. We're split. Our commercial division's a little bit larger than our residential division. We cover the entire metroplex on the commercial side, doing maintenance agreements for all types of equipment, chillers, rooftops, you name it. We're working on it. Medical facilities all over. But it's about probably a 65 or 70-30 split, commercial to residential. In our residential, we service a much smaller area. Our office is actually in Aubrey, but that's kind of a good location for us to go both Dallas, Fort Worth directions, but we don't go quite into Dallas and Fort Worth. We cover Denton County, a little bit of, Collin County, I guess it would be the west side of Collin County a little bit, and up into the southern parts of Grayson and Cook counties. So it's a little bit tighter circle on the residential to hopefully have a little bit better, service and coverage there. But yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell, I guess.
No. Well, those counties and those areas they're growing so much right now, especially up in the Cook County and the Grayson County areas.
For sure.
It's amazing.
Sure.
I was up north off of 380, and just the whole area down 380 is ridiculous right now.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with 380, I know some of our viewers down in Houston, that's north of Denton area is what it is. And it's amazing that you guys focus on a small area to make sure you're taking care of people more. But let's get into, first starting out with maintenance. You guys do a great job on having maintenance plans and things like that. Kind of tell people, how often they should be able to get, their systems maintenance, and age of a system. Does that change the amount of maintenance that you want to do on them?
Sure. So typically what's, kind of industry standard stuff on residential systems, to do maintenance, our programs are a twice a year program where we come in and do a heating inspection and maintenance, and a cooling inspection and maintenance. Those that we don't recommend that be the only filter changes that get done, but a lot of times, we do change the filters when we're there doing those, but there's a whole list of stuff that we do. Outside cleaning of coils, the condensing unit on the outside, has to be kept clean. Going through the system, checking out everything, making sure the freon levels are good. But the filters, depending on I think I may have said this last time, but every home's a little bit different. So you kind of tailor them to fit the number of people, the things in the home, right? I mean, like a house with wood floors is going to perform differently than a house with carpet. A house with pets is going to perform differently than a house without pets. So you kind of have to tailor them. And I think the filter changes are kind of a result of that, become a result of how often you need to change filters, would be dependent on some of those things in the home. I would recommend 4 times kind of minimum would be the thing. And then some people need them monthly, depending on kind of what the circumstances are in the house.
So on the filters, there's all those different sizes, and the one that I have in our house are those 4-inch filters. I think they are. Are those the ones that you would say you suggest changing 4 times a year?
So any new systems that we install, we almost 100% install the 4-inch filters on them. The area, the coverage that you get with airflow with a 4-inch filter is going to let more air pass through, and it's going to collect more contaminants ultimately. But a lot of systems, especially the older systems, are not set up with those. Some back, if it's 8 or 10 years old, they might have put a 2-inch filter in them. And if they're 12 or 15 years old, they might have a 1-inch filter. Um, and again, every one of those performs a little bit differently. We tell most people, if you've got an older system with a 1-inch filter, buy the cheapest filter you can get and just change them more often.
Okay.
Those filters that you get at Home Depot, those Filtrete, a lot of those are actually more kind of, I hate to use the word harm, but they can create more issues than fixing the problem or filtering more air, so to speak. They create more of a restriction, which could be even as harmful to the system as having a filter that's not performing as well. So we tend to try to steer people away from those really expensive 1-inch filters at Home Depot. Honestly, you can buy the one on the bottom shelf that's very cheap and just change it more often, would be my recommendation on that.
Okay. Huh.
But I've been told, like my dad, we had those reusable filters, that 1-inch reusable filters, and we'd take those out and clean them off, and water hose, and then you had to let them dry. It was such a pain, when it came to it, and we had a company come out and they're like, throw those away.
Yeah.
Because over time you're washing out, but it's not actually getting them cleaned out anymore.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
they said go to those cheap 1-inch ones. And this is back in the 90s, so I'm aging myself a little bit here. But
Just a little.
With the filter changes too, the importance of the filter changes is it's for the inside part of the system for sure, but it keeps all the other components. Not only does it filter out make the air better, but it keeps all the other components in the system cleaner. You don't, if dirt gets past that filter, if it's not performing, then that gets on the coil, which causes it not to perform well, and then that's an additional could be an additional job to clean that up. It keeps the ducts cleaner, which that's the purpose of that filter, is to keep on the insides, to keep those that system running properly and keep it clean and performing right.
So I take it I can't take the air filter and treat it like I do with my car's air filter by using a high pressure air hose and just hosing it through, cleaning it all out and stick it back in. I can't do that, huh?
Probably wouldn't recommend that. No, that's probably not the best thing to do.
That's funny.
Well, I let me change gears a little bit here from the maintenance and filters and stuff. Thermostats. Granted, there's different thermostats, but the one that I have I can actually on my phone, it's pretty cool. I can actually program it on my phone because I like it a little colder at night when I go to bed, right? So I'll turn it down to about 68, right, at night, but I like it during the day because I work here at home. I like it a little bit higher to save on energy. So what kind of, I assume in doing that though, I'm helping my costs in energy. Is that would that be?
Absolutely. Yeah. We always, anymore, I don't know that anybody would install systems without smart thermostats, but there's still a lot of older systems out there that may not have those. And that is a fairly inexpensive item to add if you weren't changing your system out. That it makes, a lot of people set them and forget them. But if they don't have the smart thermostat, they're setting it what they want it to be when they're home, and then it's doing that all day long. So that's definitely chewing up a lot of unnecessary energy at that point. Most of these new smart thermostats, you can adjust. Mine on my house, I've got 4 different time blocks. I've got a sleeping, I've got
Yeah.
a awake in the morning while you're getting ready. I've got a away while you're gone during the day. And then I've got that period in the evening when, things are changing, people loads changing, or people are getting ready to go.
Okay. Right.
And every one of those, I've got it just a little bit different. You don't want massive swings in temperature. So
Yeah.
you don't want it to be 70 if 70 is your point and then put it to 85.
Right.
You want it to be
Right.
at 76 or 78 or something like that, so that when it does start getting ready to start cooling down, that it's not having to work for hours to try to get it back down to that
Right.
temperature. That actually defeats the purpose a little bit. But that 4 or 5, 6 degree temperature difference that you're setting it in the off times is going to have some savings in energy for sure.
Okay. Especially, I mean, I would imagine in at nighttime, right? It's cooler outside, so it's not going to have to work as hard to cool the inside down, more, because to go from like 72 down to 68 at 10 o'clock at night is probably going to be easier, I'm thinking.
For sure. And it's not going to take as long to get there. And then it's not going to, of course, it's not going to run as often. Now, we're in that little period of time right now where it's starting to get warm during the days, but it's still staying pretty cool at night. So, you want to take advantage of those savings, right? So that you're not running. Those are the big temperature swings that you want to take advantage of, so that your system's not running a lot. When it gets to be July and it doesn't get below 80 degrees and your system seems like it never shuts off, a little bit different, right? At that point. But you still want to take advantage of those little windows, those little small windows, if you can.
Okay. Am I the only one that likes it like super cold at night? Am I the only one out there? I mean, no. Okay. I love it cold at night.
You're not.
I will admit, when it got down to 52 not too long ago, I opened up windows and I was like, bring it in. I turned the heater off.
Thank you.
And, my wife wakes up in the morning. She's like, how cold is it in the house? It's like, it got down to like 63. We're fine.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah.
I can tell when somebody adjusts my thermostat 1 degree in my eyes, like, okay, who put it on 71 instead of 70?
Well, like Tanya's Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
Tanya's commenting. She says 66 at night is where she sets hers. So
is it? There you go, Tanya.
That is probably where we are in the wintertime. In the summertime, I'm nowhere close to that temperature. I can't afford that electric bill if I do that.
My family thinks I'm trying to freeze them out in the winter. It's like, do we have a heater? I'm like, no, we do not.
I had a buddy out in Arizona that did that. In the wintertime, they wouldn't turn on the heat. And he always told his kids, remember in the summertime when you're griping how hot it is? Now just remember how nice it is right now.
Right. Just daydream about that.
Yeah, daydream.
Yeah. So, I've got older systems. My house was built in 2001, and it's probably the original systems. You guys service them, so thankfully they're still running right and things like that for me. So thank you guys to your company. Changing out thermostats for an older system. Is that something that can be done if we want to go to a smart kind of thermostat for the house?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can. I mean, there are rare occasions where, depending on the brand or the type of unit that you got, that the wiring may be slightly different. That's not a lot. So most homes are a candidate for upgrading thermostats for sure.
Okay. And would you recommend, having, when you're getting your maintenance done, having your company or whoever's company, Joe, down in your area, check that to see if that's a possibility that could help the clients?
Sure. Yeah. And anytime, we can check that while we're there. It's always helpful if we're on a maintenance agreement, if people are having those thoughts, we try to have our technicians communicate that. But, at the end of the day, our guys that go out are really taught and trained how to fix a system. They're unfortunately they aren't great salespeople, but because we don't really feel like, on one hand, you're like, we're barraged. Everybody's, bombarded every day with trying to upsell and trying to sell. And we have kind of ingrained in our people that we want to fix, right? I mean, if it needs a replacement, we want to give you that option. And we want you to understand that, hey, maybe this is not the best money spent putting this much money into a 20-year-old system, right? But we always want everybody to understand that they've got a lot of these options, that it's not a, if you get told that you need a replacement and weren't given a repair option, then you probably need to make another phone call, or you need, check with somebody else. The main thing though is if you're on a maintenance program, communicate that stuff, and hopefully our people are, we want to have our guys out there going, if they don't see a smart thermostat, say, hey, have you thought about putting a smart thermostat on there? Fine line, right, between really taking care of your customer and not overselling, people stuff that they just don't need.
Yeah. And that's what I like about your company. You're not a marketing ploy where, you talk about all these different things. You guys truly look at the problems and help us understand them. So your technicians do a wonderful job at that,
Yeah, they really are trained to fix equipment. I mean, that's what they're trained to do. But there's those times when, you spent the industry says that 12 to 15 years is kind of the useful life of an air conditioning system. They'll last longer than that, taken good care of, for sure. I've seen them also not last that long when not properly maintained. We've replaced 8-year-old systems before, which nobody wants to do that, but it happens if they're not maintained well at times. So good maintenance is critical to making sure they last as long as they possibly can.
Now you're scaring me.
I know mine lasted, my home back up in Michigan that I had sold last summer. The year before I sold it, I had to replace the air conditioner, and it was the original air conditioner from back when it was built in 2001. So it lasted a good 20 years, amazingly. And it was interesting. Matter of fact, this is kind of a side note, but it was interesting because the unit that he wanted to put in, he was trying to match it to, boy, I'm trying to think, Kenny. I think it had to do something with the Freon type or something that was already in the system or whatever. So he had to kind of match the unit to it, something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, so refrigerants have changed over the it's regulated by the government, of course, but
yeah,
R22 is the older, the refrigerant that's been around for forever that they phased out. There's still R22 units out there running, and you can still you can't sell an R22. They quit making those a long time ago, but the refrigerant is still on the market. It's still out there. They're not producing, I don't think, any new refrigerant, but there's inventories of this refrigerant, because you've got, it's one thing to have a house system that's on it, but you could have a big commercial facility that's got these massive units that run on that same refrigerant, that you're not talking about a $12,000 AC replacement. You're talking about a $500,000 replacement or something. So they're limping those along forever and ever and ever. Absolutely. But the R22 got phased out to 410A. And now it's funny because this year they're actually talking about the next replacement in a couple of years of going to even another refrigerant replacement. So yes, that is also one of the factors in when you start talking about repair versus replace. Yeah, the cost of the if it is truly still an old R22 system, the cost of fixing that and then the cost of the refrigerant is oftentimes makes those the really easy decisions to replace. Yeah. The harder ones are the 410A, which are, the ones that aren't as old, and the refrigerant is much more economical at that point. So yeah, refrigerant's playing a big part in some of these decisions for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Now, do you have to, when you replace a unit, you don't, do you have to replace the coolant lines and the ductwork, or just the outside unit and the coolant lines? It's just
very rarely do you change either of those things when you do like a system change out, unless you suspect that there is a leak somewhere, which that's not often. So it's very rarely are refrigerant lines replaced, and they run in the wall. So that becomes a pretty big task if you do have a problem there. Ductwork, again, not usually replaced when you replace a system. If it was installed properly in the beginning and it was maintained, the chances are that it doesn't need to be replaced. What we do find is sometimes they need to be tweaked or adjusted. We need some air balancing done, that maybe rooms weren't cooling or heating as well as other rooms. So you need to, adjust and shift some of the air, what we call air balancing, which is, making sure that everything's kind of moving in the right direction. Cause sometimes it's just an airflow, too much going one direction and not enough going another. So we can make those. We can make those adjustments when we do system replacements, but pretty much it's an inside and outside unit replacement is what that becomes.
Yeah, I've got a 2-story townhouse that I'm in, and the upstairs is always, of course, a lot hotter, right? Downstairs is cold, super cold. And amazingly, my thermostat is actually upstairs. But I asked to have someone come over and rebalance some of it so that, more of it, especially in the wintertime, having more of the heat go downstairs than upstairs, because the upstairs is already too warm as it is, right? But
so is that one system on that? It's just one system. So those are some of the trickiest applications to try to solve, is a 2-story home with one system, because of that difference in heat rising and all that. So one of the big things there, one of the most critical things in a one system 2-story home is thermostat placement. So what you got to start thinking about is wherever that thermostat's placed is going to, the environment where it's at is going to kind of dictate what happens all over the house at that point.
Right.
So if your upstairs is not occupied nearly to the extent that your downstairs in, then we would say your thermostat needs to be downstairs.
Yeah.
But just thinking through some of that, how that affects, that heat rising thing, it's hard to make sure that everybody's happy in a 2-story home with one system for sure.
Well, and that's another reason why I crank it down to be cooler at night, because the bedrooms are upstairs.
Yep.
And that's the area where the thermostat is and where it's the hottest, right?
Yep.
And if I go downstairs, it's freezing cold down there, so it's kind of a battle, I guess. But
so you can benefit at times too. One thing that I don't know that I've ever mentioned is zoning is an option too, to where you have zones, so that when one area satisfies but another doesn't, that it helps kind of moderate that a little bit. So you'd have sensors in other rooms in the house. So there are options to kind of help that a little bit. If you can't get that thermostat location to actually fix that, or through ducting you can't, sometimes zoning becomes an option.
And that's just a matter of putting sensors in different areas.
Yep, you would put dampers in some of the ductwork and control those from sensors in different rooms, so that when one room reaches a set, it's almost like another thermostat. We call it a sensor though, but when it reaches a set point, it would close off a damper, which would quit moving air to that area, but it would still continue moving air to the other areas.
Right. Okay.
Oh, that's neat. I didn't know you could do that with the units.
Nice.
Oh. Well, I know we're coming up to the end of our time. Kenny, Joe, I don't know if you have his website or information on contacting, but I'm going to ask you, Kenny, if somebody wants to reach out to your company, what is the best way that they can get a hold of you guys, and what website is best for them to go to and see what services you guys provide?
So the website is spectrumfullservice.com. On the website, you've got the ability to kind of see all the services that we provide and kind of who we are and what we do. And then there's also, tabs where you can request service or, speak to somebody. Our phone number is 940-323-2300. That is a direct line to our office. There's somebody there, a dispatch person or a receptionist, that will take the call and direct the call and, wherever it needs to go. We've got multiple people in the office that do different tasks, but that's the main number that gets you in there. And if you're requesting service, they'll dispatch you to the right person. But the website does give you a little bit of an idea of who we are, mainly, kind of what we believe and that sort of stuff, but does have the ability to then kind of click through and get to us.
Okay. And
Sweet.
guys, remember Kenny's company Spectrum, they also do commercials. So if you own business buildings, commercial buildings in the Denton County area, Cook County, and Grayson County area, and a little bit of the Collin, give them a call. If you're having issues with the people that are maintaining your systems, because I know those are big systems and pains. So, shoot a call over to Kenny's office and, use them, because they do specialize in commercial building HVAC systems too.
Yep.
So
very well.
we really appreciate you coming on today and sharing this information.
You got it. Glad to be here and glad I could help.
Yeah. Thanks for putting up with us again.
Yeah, that's all right. Just drop that check off. I know this being
Yeah.
the second round, I know that becomes a paid gig, right? At that point.
Yeah, there's a decimal and then a zero, and then there's another zero after it. So.
Okay, gotcha. No, I really enjoyed it, guys. Glad we could come on and be of a little bit of help.
Yeah. Joe, what do we got next week? Because next week's the part 4.
Yeah, next week we're going, continue on with our 4-part series. We're going to be actually wrapping it up next week. It'll be part 4 of preparing your home for the spring housing market. And we're going to have a special guest on, Tanya McIntyre. She is a landscaping architect. So she's going to talk about landscaping, and especially the curb appeal, right? That's huge, important when looking at a home, and that when you drive up to the home, just that whole curb appeal really starts to draw the person in. So we're going to have Tanya on next week with that. So be sure to tune in 9 a.m. Central Time, Wednesday mornings. I do want to thank everyone, though, for listening in, those that and comments and stuff. We really do appreciate it. Really helps add the additional character to the show beyond what Joe and I can do. So we appreciate. If you want to catch up on any of the past episodes, go to our YouTube channel, The Mojo Show Real Estate Podcast. And while you're there, please hit the subscribe button. We are on a mission, Joe and I'll put the plug in as I always do. We are on a mission by the end of this year to be able to get to 1,000 subscribers. So be sure and go to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button, The Mojo Show Real Estate Podcast. Any last comments, Joe, before I close it out for us?
No, it was a great show today. I'm really excited about hearing next week. And I'm going to make sure my wife does not listen, because I do not need architectural design for my landscaping.
Well, I'm Joe Mortgage, and that handsome guy with the beard is Cup of Joe Mortgage, and we'll see you next week.
Mr.